have a confession to make. Before last year, I was what you would call a fermented food noob. I knew there was a difference between kombucha and sauerkraut, but that was about my limit. My palate had never been tantalized by kimchi or tea, and whilst I'd heard of all these supposed health benefits, I just never got around to giving them a go. However, after making my first batch of fermented vegetables last summer, it all changed. It was so simple, cheap and easy that I quickly became a convert. Mainly, in fact, around 70% of our immune cells are located in the gut. There are many different types of fermented foods you can make at home, each requiring different ingredients and methods. Secondly, wash and chop your vegetables. Then place them in a jar, leaving a couple of inches of space at the top. The most popular fermented fruits are berries, grapes, and cherries, which can be turned into delicious drinks like wine and juice. The next step is to experiment with different flavors and recipes. I highly recommend checking out nour.com, who have given me permission to share one of their free resources, a fermented vegetable recipe book. You can make everything from fermented hot sauce to pickled onions and kimchi. And if you don't like the sound of that, then don't worry. They've also got loads of other resources on their website, including blogs, guides, and courses. Here's how it's done. Choose ripe and undamaged fruit, as this will ensure the best flavor and nutritional content. Wash and crush the fruit to release its juices. This can be done by hand or with a juicer or blender. Transfer the juice to a clean jar or container, leaving a couple of inches of space at the top. Add yeast, which will help ferment the sugar in the fruit. Then seal the container and leave it at room temperature for 1 to 2 weeks. Just like with the vegetables, check the contents every day to ensure no mold appears. Once it's ready, store it in the fridge where it'll last for up to 6 months. And don't worry, if you haven't got any special equipment, you can use a balloon to trap carbon dioxide and force the liquid through a cloth to remove the sediment. Add salt and then press the vegetables down to release their juices. If you want to include garlic or other flavorings, then now is the time to do it. Finally, seal the jar with an airtight lid and leave it at room temperature for 3 to 4 days. Check the vegetables every day to make sure they're not moldy, and be patient. The longer you leave them, the more sour and crispy they'll become. However, if you notice any mold, you'll need to throw them away. Once they're ready, store them in the fridge where they'll last for several months. And that's it. Easy peasy. But luckily for you, I'm going to cover 2 of the most popular options here: vegetables and fruit. I'm going to start with vegetables, which are probably the easiest to make. Vegetables contain natural sugars, starches, and salts, which are ideal for fermentation. All you need to get started is a jar, some salt in your veggies, and that's really it. Oh, except the vegetables, obviously. Here's how it's done. 1 way that fermented foods improve our immunity is by strengthening the gut barrier. This prevents toxins and harmful bacteria from leaking into the bloodstream and triggering an immune response. For example, a study published in the journal Gastroenterology found that consumption of kimchi, which is a Korean fermented cabbage dish, increased the production of which is an antibody that helps protect against infections. Another study published in the British Journal of Nutrition showed that consumption improved immune function in people with upper respiratory tract infections. Fermented foods are delicious. They improve your digestion, they support your immune system, and they're incredibly easy to make. Because I love a good crunchy sour pickle, and also because I want to keep my gut microbiome happy. If you're not already sold on the idea, then let me do my best to win you over. Let's start with why you should bother. Firstly, they taste great. Not only do they add flavor to your diet, but they come packed full of beneficial bacteria, which actually make that flavor happen. We've been fermenting foods for thousands of years, and in my opinion, the results are totally worth it. A nice cup of kombucha is one of my favorite drinks, and sauerkraut is the perfect accompaniment to a sausage. Secondly, they improve your digestion. This is because fermented foods are full of probiotics, which are live bacteria that, when consumed in adequate amounts, can help improve your gut health. Your gut microbiome consists of trillions of bacteria and other microorganisms, and these microbes help you break down food and absorb nutrients. When your gut microbiome is balanced and contains a variety of different bacteria, you'll experience better digestion. This means less bloating, less gas, and regular bowel movements. The most important thing, though, is that your gut microbiome protects your body from harmful bacteria, and this is where fermented foods come in. Probiotics in fermented foods like kimchi and kefir increase the amount of beneficial bacteria in your gut. This helps to fight off bad bacteria and reduce inflammation. By eating fermented foods regularly, you can help maintain a healthy balance of bacteria in your gut, which leads to improved digestion. Finally, fermented foods support your immune system, so we know that our gut has a huge role in immunity, and fermented foods can help boost that function. And now, on to how to make some yourself. First, Choose vegetables with a high water content, such as carrots, cucumbers, or radishes. These will ferment faster and produce a crispier result. Now on to fruit. Fruit is naturally sweet and high in sugar, which makes it perfect for fermentation. So now you know why you need to eat fermented foods and how to make some basic ones yourself. As for me, I've got another batch of fermented vegetables in the cupboard, and I am looking forward to trying out some kombucha for the first time. This is kimchi fried rice, with some kimchi on top, and an egg. And this is not your average fried rice, I'll tell you that for sure. It has these little things in it that are so good for you. Yogurt is made by adding a small amount of milk to a culture of bacteria. That bacteria feeds on the milk sugar and produces lactic acid. And the lactic acid, it causes the milk proteins to coagulate. And then eventually you get yogurt. Now this is fermented cabbage. When you ferment cabbage, you're actually creating an acidic food. And acidic foods, they help prevent cavities. So sauerkraut, it's really good for your teeth. It can help prevent tooth decay. Sauerkraut is German and kimchi is Korean, but they both use cabbage. That culture is called a SCOBY. A SCOBY is a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. When you add that to your sweetened tea, the microorganisms, they start feeding on the sugar, and it produces acetic acid, carbon dioxide, and alcohol. It has many health benefits. It can boost the immune system. It aids digestion. It can improve liver health. It can also improve heart health. Sauerkraut is just shredded cabbage that has been fermented with certain types of bacteria. Those bacteria feed on the sugars in the cabbage and create lactic acid. That lactic acid, it gives sauerkraut its sour taste. Miso is used to make soup. Miso soup. And it's also used as a seasoning. Miso has a lot of protein and fiber and healthy fats. It has probiotics. It has antioxidants. It has vitamins and minerals. It can be used in stir fries. It can be grilled. It can be pan-fried. And tempeh, it has lots of protein and fiber and healthy fats. It's high in calcium and iron. It has probiotics. It has enzymes, and it has but it also creates an environment that is not suitable for cavity-causing bacteria. Now making your own sauerkraut is easy. Just take a big, healthy-looking cabbage, cut it up, place it in a jar, and then press it down so all the air bubbles are pressed out. As you can see, they have lots of health benefits. They can aid digestion. They can improve the immune system. They can reduce inflammation. They can prevent cavities. They can lower blood pressure. They have antioxidants. They have probiotics. They have vitamins and minerals. So you want to add some of these fermented foods to your diet. You want to add salt to it. About a tablespoon per pound of cabbage. Press it down again, and then cover it loosely with a lid. Leave it at room temperature for 4 weeks, and check it occasionally. If you see any mold, just get rid of it. After 4 weeks, you can refrigerate it and then enjoy it. Okay. Now if you want to make your own yogurt, it's actually really simple to do. You've probably seen it before, maybe even tried it. And kimchi, it is a Korean staple. My mom makes the best kimchi. Pickles are cucumbers that have been fermented in brine. There's 2 types of pickles. One is a sweet pickle. Sweet pickles are cucumbers that are soaked in vinegar. Vinegar pickles, they're crisp and sour. Dill pickles are the ones that I like. Now dill pickles, they're fermented in a saltwater solution that contains dill, and this is an example of natural fermentation. We're just leaving it out in the open and letting nature do its thing. The fermentation process for pickles, it lasts around 60 days. And during that time, the salt water, it draws out the water from the cucumbers, and the cucumbers become crisp. During fermentation, the cucumbers turn from green to brown, and they develop their characteristic flavor and aroma. Pickles have many health benefits. They can aid digestion. They're high in vitamins and minerals. They're a good source of probiotics. They can improve insulin metabolism, and they're a low-calorie snack. Pickles, they're usually kept in the refrigerator once they're fully fermented because you don't want the temperature to get too high, and that's with all fermented foods. Once they're done fermenting, you want to put them in the refrigerator. In fact, she's going to be teaching a class soon, where she will teach you how to make delicious kimchi at home. I'll put the link in the description box below, so check that out. But kimchi is made by adding Korean chili powder and garlic to cabbage leaves and then fermenting it for several days. During the fermentation process, the cabbage becomes sour and crunchy. The microorganisms that are in kimchi, they're beneficial for gut health. They can also boost the immune system, and they have antioxidant properties. All you need is milk and a bacterial culture. If you don't have a fancy machine to make yogurt, you can actually make it in the slow cooker. Just pour your milk into a container, place it in the slow cooker, set the temperature on low, and let it sit for 8 hours. Now, after the 8 hours, You want to put it in the refrigerator to cool before you eat it? Now, as far as the bacterial culture goes, you can actually get those online. You can get different types of cultures. You can also get them in a yogurt shop, maybe a local one in your area. And you can ask them if they could give you some of their yogurt, some of the starter culture from the previous batch, to use in the next batch. Or you can go to the store and buy yogurt that has live active cultures. Look on the label. Make sure it says live active cultures. You can use that as your starter. The next time you make yogurt, just take a little bit of that yogurt and add it to your new batch. Fermenting is just another way of saying that we have left food out to be changed by bacteria, yeast, or other microorganisms like fungi. Now, it's made by adding kefir grains to milk. Kefir grains, they look like these little white pebbles, but they're actually a mixture of bacteria and yeast. So when you add those to milk, they start feeding on the milk sugar and produce alcohol and carbon dioxide and organic acids. Now, those acids thicken the liquid and give it a sour taste. Now, the alcohol and carbon dioxide, they give it a little bit of a fizzy feeling, like a soda. And kefir, it's really good for your gut health. If you have a hard time digesting dairy, this might be an easier option for you. And those microorganisms, they feed on the sugars in the food and create all these new yummy flavors. Sometimes they create alcohol or acids or gases, which can change the texture of the food as well. Now, fermented foods can last longer than other foods because these microorganisms actually fight off spoilage microorganisms. Now, why should you eat them? Well, first of all, they taste great. They have all these rich, deep flavors that you just cannot get from non-fermented foods. They can also be very good for your health. The microorganisms that are found in fermented foods can be good for your gut health. Now, keep in mind, there are billions of bacteria inside of your gut, and these are the good bacteria. And these good bacteria, they help you digest your food, and they even make certain nutrients available to you that otherwise you wouldn't be able to digest. So having more good bacteria in your gut helps you break down foods and absorb nutrients from your food. Alright, now let's look at how you can ferment foods. The most common way is called natural fermentation, and that means that you just leave your food out and let microorganisms from the environment get into the food and start fermenting it. The second method is called starter fermentation, and with this method you use microorganisms that are already in a food that you re-eating, and then you add that to your new food that you re-trying to ferment. Alright, let's take a look at some fermented foods that you should try. The first one is yogurt. The next fermented food is kefir, is basically a fermented milk drink. Next, we have sauerkraut. Kimchi is the next fermented food. Pickles are next. Sauerkraut and kimchi, they're the same thing. The next one is kombucha. Kombucha is a fermented tea drink. It's made by adding a kombucha culture to sweeten tea. Tempeh is the next fermented food. Tempeh is made from fermented soybeans. It has a firm texture and a nutty flavor. And the last fermented food that I'm going to talk about today is miso. Miso is made by fermenting soybeans with salt and koji. So, these are just a few examples of fermented foods that you should try. Well, thank you for watching this video, guys. Please like and subscribe.